Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Theme Thursday. Here at Texas A&M San Antonio, we do what we call Theme Thursday, which is for all of our Clifton Strengths. We are Clifton Strengths campus, if you did not already know that. All of our students are able to take their Clifton Strengths Finder, kind of quiz, understand what their top 5 strengths are, and then we break them down in these Theme Thursday settings with our coaches to just break down each individual theme. Normally, we are at a table. Normally, we are on campus having lots of fun with candy and all that good stuff, lots of music. But during this time, we are taking it virtual. If you haven't already, there are several Theme Thursdays ahead of this one, and there are a couple more after. So feel free to go through all those Theme Thursdays on the playlist on YouTube. And we're going to go ahead and get started today. We're really excited for today. My name is Allie. I am the Service Learning Coordinator at Texas A&M San Antonio at the Mays Center. And I am a strengths enthusiast. I'm not a coach, but I just love strengths, love to learn about them, and so that's why I'm here with you guys today. And then I'm going to have our coaches introduce themselves as well. We want to head down the line.
Hi, everyone. My name is Clarissa Tejeda, and I serve as the Assistant Director of Career Services at the Mays Center, but I'm also one of the Certified Strengths Coaches at A&M San Antonio, so it's going to be a great conversation today. Really excited.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kaylin Freese. I am the Internship Coordinator in the Mays Center and also one of the Certified Strengths Coaches on campus, so I'm excited to talk about Intellection today.
Hello, everybody. My name is Eliza Cullen, and I am the Coordinator for Programs and Partnerships. And Intellection happens to be in my top 5. So I am super excited to be here today to talk about Intellection with y'all.
We're super excited to have Eli again. If you haven't seen any of the previous Theme Thursdays, sometimes there are people in our office, sometimes there are people on campus. Today, we're super fortunate we are all out of the Mays Center, so we get to see each other's strengths in really unique ways because we get to see each other a lot. Even now during this time that we're not together, we're still together. Clarissa and I are both matching today. It is Twin Tuesday for Spirit Week. So we're matching today. We actually got these shirts at the JCPenney Suit Up event, which is another event that we do. If you haven't been to it yet, be on the lookout. It's a really fun event. But we're going to get started today, and we're going to talk about intellection. People who are exceptionally talented in the intellection theme are characterized by their intellectual activities. They're introspective and appreciate intellectual discussion. That's intellection and intellectual and introspective all used in various different ways. So we're going to break that down a little bit for you guys and really dig into what intellection means for an individual and what it can mean for a team. So first, we want to really define what intellection means to somebody who has intellection. So Eli, if you could, explain to us what intellection really means to you.
Sure, yeah. So usually it means that I need some time to break things down before I make big decisions. I like to gather some information, and I like to think things through before I leap. I like to look before I leap. I like to think things through, and I like to look at all the evidence before I make these big decisions. And I like to have team members who understand that and look at everything with me sometimes.
Yeah, I love that. I think intellection is not high for me. Not one of those things that I lean on very often, but it is really interesting. I think when they talk really about introspection, and you kind of touched on that a little bit, is that people who have the intellection strength really need time to process. That time and space to say, okay, here's a problem, or here's a task, or here's a process that needs to take place. How do I break that down and really get the full picture? So I think you touched on that a little bit. It's like your team has to give you space and time to break down really what you're thinking about. Because it's interesting, the intellection theme, they talk about it as really focused, really honed in on I need to take the time to understand what's going on, or to, think about, they're those deep thinkers where you really have to process a lot. And it's a really interesting thing. Like I said, I don't have it very high up. I tend to just, go for it and think about it later. But it's so interesting how much strength is behind that theme, on how important it is for a team, in being, building relationships and things like that. So Clarissa, Kaylin, who wants to touch first on what intellection means in that like wider Gallup definition, or in that kind of perspective?
So I guess I can chat. So my spouse actually has Intellection in their 5, and yeah, right when Eli was saying, I need time to process, I'm like, that is why I annoy him on some things right there. Because Intellection really, they are the philosophers of strengths, right? They will love to get paid to think and just process. Now, it lives in the strategic thinking because, again, it's still big picture. They want to deep dive and really understand something before they move forward with it. But it is something, though, it is a little different, though, than input. Because input and intellection are both going to want to ask those questions and gather that information. Input's going to gather a lot of information, right? Intellection, though, is going to be like, well, where's my area of interest? And also how they ask those questions are very different. So input, asking those external questions, asking someone, hey, can you tell me more about that? Versus intellection may internalize some of those questions. Why is that working this way? How else could we improve this? So they're very much, again, kind of operate in their mind, which is really cool. I think I have a lot of respect for intellection because it's very much subject matter expert in something that they're interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's fascinating to me. Like I said, it's not in one of my top, and really being passionate about it. You're passionate about, and it's different from learner who's kind of like, I want to learn all of these things, but intellection is really like, I want to understand this specific thing, or like Clarissa said, what my passion is, or what really calls to me, and understanding that better. Kaylin, is there anything you want to add to this kind of overarching theme?
No, I think Clarissa really hit the nail on the head, and Eli as well, with the different contributions that they each shared. I think intellection, again, is just all about the thinking and the diving deep into different content. Like Clarissa mentioned, it's different from input in that it, what you dive deep into is interest-based. So there's just some pieces there that I think are important. Yeah, I think Clarissa and Eli covered pretty much everything about intellection that I would also share.
Well, nifty. So kind of our next move, I guess, across this board is examples of where intellection has helped you. I think it's really hard sometimes for our students, faculty, staff, anybody who is taking Clifton Strengths, to really see the value in your strengths of how they've really helped you or helped develop a program or in your, and we always say this, we reference Clifton Strengths in a professional way in our professional world, or as our students and their learning and education. But even in your, outside, when you were an undergraduate, or when you were in your, like in your personal lives, or how you kind of function with teams of people, can you give us examples of like intellection, both on that professional level, or however it really calls out to you and you can really see it clearly?
Yeah, sure. So for me, I can't see anything working in a vacuum. I see everything collaborating together. So intellection is my number 5, and strategic is my number 1, and I have all these things just kind of working together, right? Everybody does. So when I'm using intellection, it's supporting everything else. And I'm taking all this information in, I'm processing it, and it's supporting strategy as well. And I'm looking at the big picture, and I'm thinking, how do we make this work? I have all these facts, I have all this information, and what is the path going forward, basically? How do we make this program work? How do we make it work for students? What's the path to go forward? And it's me alone processing with my whiteboard sometimes. And, that kind of introspective sort of thing to try to find the best path to go forward. And it's kind of a support to have this structure for everything else. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, I love that too. I mean, I think we talk about it all the time. You know, a strength is not like on its own ever. The strengths are being utilized by all of the other ones as well, and not even just your top 5. You pull from all of your, you know, everybody has the 34, and so really taking that time to say it's not just one strength. I'm not just utilizing intellection. I'm utilizing all of these things, and it's pulling from different strengths to, like you said, be strategic. And I'm not super strategic sometimes. We all know that's not one of my highest strengths. But when you look to say, it's not just one strength. One strength doesn't rule my life. I don't use it, you know, for everything and anything. You have to pull on strengths at different times. So yeah, I think that is so clear in your work. And, you know, and like I said, we're fortunate enough, we all get to work in the same office, so we get to see each other's strengths pretty obviously. But it is interesting to say, like, okay, I am not that person that like really processes things deeply. That's just not me. But it's so valuable to have somebody on the team that can do that, because it really is. And we talk about this all the time in Clifton Strengths and on our Theme Thursdays. But when you're looking at your team and you're looking at who is around you and being able to say, like, I do not have that strength, but that person does, and they bring so much value. They bring value just because they're an amazing human, but their strengths also bring value to our personal or professional work. And I love that you mentioned collaboration. That's something we're always talking about. And I mean, what are again, we say this all the time too, like, I'm being a little selfish, but what are tips for collaborating with someone who has intellection in their top strengths?
I can speak to this. I think a big piece to collaborating with someone with intellection is to really give them time and the space to think and to dive deep into that information, whatever it is the topic at hand might be, to just give them that space and that time to really dig in so that they can bring that information to the table and share that with the group. I think that's a huge piece to intellection that will really help in a team environment.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I would just kind of add that it can be really stressful for an intellection person if we're making a lot of decisions without having a lot of information and giving us time to process that information and really asking those questions that need to be answered first. We want to make sure that we are able to make the best decision that we can, especially if we're like programming for students here on our campus.
And then even, you know how like last week we were talking about how restorative, when to include them. So even with intellection, how can you include them in the beginning of the process, right? So at the launch of an initiative. So you can really get that insight with them. And then again, say if you have a team of activators, right, they're moving and all that, they're tinkering, but that intellection can still, again, deep dive, have that time to process, so all y'all can meet up at the end, say, hey, you know, this is what we're going to move forward together. So not including them in the like very end when you're like, oh, we have to move forward, right, at this aggressive time. Well, let's talk about this in the beginning. How can we actually be strategic and mindful of it from the start?
And I think we're really touching on one of the challenges for intellection, which is sometimes things move at a pace that is not great for everybody. Even as an activator, I can say there's a lot of things in higher education, or just like right now, in the time that we're living in, where changes are happening so quickly. Even as an activator, I'm struggling, and I love change, and I love fast pace. So, I mean, Eli, how do you deal with some of those challenges that are completely out of your control, but kind of have to work around? If you want to touch on that a little bit.
So how do I deal with the change? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I guess more like how can you kind of work through these hyper speed decisions? You know, how does that kind of affect the way that you work and how you collaborate with people? When it's really external, you know, sometimes things just have to move fast.
Sure. I would say that I'm personally still pretty good at those things because I have the strategy of the strategic. So I'm able to look at a big picture and see like where we're going. So that's how I look at things. I see this is where we're going overall. I don't have to focus on like the small situation of like we just made this decision. So I'm able to keep going and just be like, okay, we can keep going and do this. So I don't have to focus on those things. And perhaps other people with intellection, if they get stuck on that, perhaps they can do the same thing. Focus on that big picture and think, okay, we can do this. We can keep going.
Yeah,
I love how you kind of alluded.
Oh, sorry.
No, I love how you kind of alluded that you need to ground with your other strengths, right? So how are you tapping into those other 5? So again, married to someone who has intellection where he can get lost in his head. He will be there for hours. But he also has achiever in his 5. So at the end of the day, he's like, oh, but the want to get this done is so strong that I have to check it. Like, okay, you know what? I can come back to it. I got what I needed, and how can I move forward? So, yeah, I love the fact that self-awareness of your other strengths and how do you tap into that is so meaningful.
So based off of, my very limited knowledge on coping strengths, not an expert in any way, shape, or form, but, when we think of intellection, we think someone who is philosophical, someone who needs time, space, quiet, but also somebody who can be kind of solitary or, they, like Clarissa said, like hours in their head kind of working through whatever it is that they're working through. And sometimes it's not even a problem. Sometimes it's just like, I really need to process this out, or, and I, being in experiential learning, Caitlin, Eli, and I are all in experiential learning, and reflection is huge for us. We talk about it all the time. But I can see like that would also be a challenge, is sometimes when you are saying, I need this time and space, it can feel very removed, or it can feel like, oh, I'm the kind of person, like, I love journaling. I don't know anybody else on this call is a big journaler. I know some other people in our office who are big journalers, but I don't have intellection very high up, but I feel like when I do get to the point where I'm like, okay, things are moving way too fast for me, I need to really focus in and hone my energy. That's usually how I do it. And I think that kind of relates to a person who has intellection who really has to take the time. And I was hearing something from Clifton where they were talking about how discipline might really help somebody who has intellection, because they might schedule out time to be like, I'm gonna need this time. I'm gonna call you back in 2 hours, or I'm gonna like take this time, go back to my office, figure out what's really going on, and then check back in or reach back in. And I think that's a really interesting way of developing your strengths. We talk a lot about raw versus mature versus barrier labels versus all of these things that are going on. And I know Kaylin has a barrier label for us in a second. But I think one of the interesting things that I was reading was that the raw is that my reflection or my introflection or introspection can really keep me from, and like Clarissa said, keep me from achieving something, because I have to, take a step out of that. But I'm wondering, Kaylin, what are the barrier labels for someone who has intellection really high up?
Yeah. So my little card here, we've mentioned these a couple of times. So people who are exceptionally talented in the intellection theme hate a thoughtless approach to a problem. So they really, and I think I want to stress that sorry, Liam's singing over here, guys. I just want to stress the fact that for thinking, okay, sorry guys. And it continues. I just want to stress that people who have intellection, it's not necessarily that they require time, it's that time helps them progress differently than others would. So for example, the way that they think about things really energizes them to complete the next task or to move forward in a process. And so that's why they don't like the thoughtless approach to things. It's because they see the value and they're so good at taking the time to really see the bigger picture, to really process the information so that moving forward is effortless and strategic and just mindful. They really are experts, or I think a lot of times the word wise comes to mind when you think of somebody who has intellection, because they know the knowledge on such a deep level, because their mind literally can process that information quickly. So for me, I may not like to think about certain subjects or like just think in general, because my mind doesn't process as quickly as someone who has intellection when it comes to doing the research. For me, research maybe is de-energizing as opposed to energizing for those who have intellection, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the concept of time, I think, is a big one here, right? So even, again, having that moment to actually think about this, but also for someone who is high in intellection to give, once you have your idea generated and your thoughts put together, allowing that other person time to process that, because they haven't taken that, really, I guess, intentional time to really reflect on it. So it's a two-way street, right? So when you do share out, allowing them to process also is a big one.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I appreciate both of those insights, and we're constantly learning about strengths, and like Eli has said, they're different for every people. Maybe somebody who has intellection but also has, like I said, discipline or learn or any of those things, they all work together differently. And so, we encourage all of our students, anybody who is watching this, students, faculty, staff, I don't know who might be watching, but our students especially, we encourage these coaching sessions, or we encouraging these deep dives into your strengths and how you utilize them and how you utilize all of them. We never just say, you have this strength and that's your strength and that's it. They're all different and work differently. And like we said, raw versus mature, as you develop in your professional responsibilities, as you gain more responsibilities. I know we talked in the past about, when you have major life changes, like having a child or getting married or starting a new career, graduating from a certain program, your goals and your outlook might change, not too drastically, but it changes, and that can influence your strengths and how you use them as well. So, does anybody have anything else they'd like to add on the topic of intellection and collaboration, and maybe some challenges that can come from that strength?
So Eli, I'm curious. So given that we are working in a remote environment right now, how has intellection really come into play for you?
Ooh, that's a great question. So I really miss my whiteboard. So that's the thing. And so one of the challenges of intellection that I feel is if you don't have something that helps you execute, you can get in this habit of thinking for too long and not having something that triggers you to just pull that trigger and just execute whatever task you need to pull. So what I have done in this environment is I have created this awesome Kanban board here. And as a result of that Kanban board, I have been doing super great. And that has helped me a lot. So I get my think time, and I get to think about what I'm going to be doing, and I put it all on my board, and then it's there, and I know what I have to do every day. So it's perfect. It works out really well.
That's very cool. That strategic is coming in handy.
That's right. It all works together. They all work together.
Cool.
I love that. I mean, you guys know I'm a fan of any kind of whiteboard in general. I love an organized board. They're underrated. They're underrated. Everybody should have a whiteboard around. I'm just saying. That's a personal thought. I just feel like we should have one. I will tell you, one of my friends who works in research has a giant whiteboard in the house, like in the house. And I was like, isn't this like a work thing? And they were like, whiteboards are so useful. I was like, okay, cool. but they really are. And in organizing your thoughts that way, I think something that I've been running into, and I know a lot of people on our team, and I'm sure for a lot of our students as well, is same thing as Eli, putting your thoughts out on the paper and saying, like, where do they belong and how can I manage them effectively without feeling overwhelmed. I think sometimes when we look at them in a list form, or maybe even like your calendars, I don't know about everybody else, but your calendars, it can be overwhelming to look at that in a perspective of like, wow, that's a lot. Where does the time management part come in? And I really appreciate that example for all of our students who, if you're feeling overwhelmed, or maybe you're just like, I can't really figure out my time management, it's just not as good as it normally is in a regular setting. And working at home is just different, or taking classes at home is just different. Try using, different project management styles and looking at different boards or different perspectives of how you can take that intellection strength, or any strength, this is kind of in general for our students right now, and really utilize it to come up with creative solutions. So I love that, Eli. That's like the perfect example of a creative solution for working in this very, very different, difficult, I don't even know what to call it anymore. I keep saying like time frame, but I'm like, I don't know when the time frame really is, so I'm just going to say right now, and we'll call it a day there. Who knows what the time frame is, but Kaylin, is there anything, Clarissa, anything you guys want to add, or any more questions you guys have?
I just want to, I'm curious, Eli, as well. So with Intellection, how have you seen it benefit you in your work, like in your studies? I know you're currently in school right now, and so I'm thinking for students who have Intellection, how can they really, I think there's going to be some balance, like you kind of mentioned, that's going to be required, but how can you use this to really take advantage of your studies and your school?
That's a great question. I think with school, I always wanted some specific time just to kind of process what I'd learned. And for me, what I liked to do was teach one of my friends what I'd learned, and it really helped me to like internalize everything that I'd learned. It was just like a tool that I helped to kind of process, and it didn't necessarily have to be alone necessarily. It was just like another way, another processing tool basically. And it kind of was like a two birds, one stone kind of thing. It helped me be social and get me out of my dorm room at the time when I was an undergrad. And it also helped me do the processing at the same time. So that was kind of nice. But scheduling some time for just like thinking about and processing, and sometimes it was just like saying everything out loud and kind of describing it out loud, even if I'm alone. To be necessarily with a friend, but that's kind of nice. So that's one way I do it.
I really like that. Thanks for sharing. It just kind of brings in the balance to how you can use this in your studies and to really get that deep dive so you're satisfied, but also the option to getting out there out of your comfort zone, et cetera, and sharing it with another person.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think, like Helen said, and Eli, like you've said too, sometimes just like teaching somebody else can really build community in your class. I know students are kind of cringing, like, oh, like I just want to go to class and be done with it. But especially during this time where we are not seeing each other face to face, it can be really difficult. So maybe scheduling out some time, asking others in your class, like, hey, do you guys have time this weekend? Let's talk about this week's chapters, or let's, proofread each other's papers and like hand them back, or things like that. And we do those things in grade school, kindergarten, you're kind of like, oh, we're doing a peer review, or we're doing we're sitting at what was it when the desks were like in 4 squares, and it was like, oh, your partner across the desk. But those are really great tools that we can still carry into our college lives and adulthood, and reaching out to peers, because they're learning at the same time as you, if not they've already learned or they want to learn. So really, this is an opportunity to develop each other as professionals and as students, is working together and scheduling that time out. And it is uncomfortable. We don't ever, downplay having to reach out to people in your classes or to your cohort or your peers, but really taking that time to engage with one another, build community on campus when we're not on campus. And like Eli said, flex your strengths, utilize what you have to really build relationships and share with others, because your strengths are so valuable. And when you're able to share those strengths, you feel great purpose. And those around you, your teams, your peers, will benefit from that as well. Well, thank you guys. I don't want to hold you guys up too much. You guys know I could talk forever. We all know that. We'd be here all day. But I want to thank you guys for taking the time to sit here and really dive in a little bit into Intellection. I keep saying a deep dive, but we could deep dive way deeper than this. But this is an overarching kind of conversation about any students who want to learn more. You guys can always reach out to the team. Next Thursday, we've got empathy coming up, which is an exciting one that, again, I don't have. I feel like I say that every time we do these, but anyways, I don't. Not high up there. But we'll be talking about empathy. It's your second? Oh, I should have known that. Well, it's Clarissa's second, so we'll have a good.
My second as well.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh. Oh man, I don't have it. It's not up there high at all. I don't even know where it is.
From counseling will be joining us, so I'm really excited to hear how he uses it, especially with students, and how he keeps it kind of balanced too, because it's one of those, it can get really heavy
empathy
really quick.
Is tough. I just saw a meme about empathy, actually. I'll have to send it to you guys. But so we'll be talking about that next week. Stay tuned. I'll probably have a meme for you guys. And like we said, this is a sort of deep dive and almost like, you're up to your waist. There's a lot more that you can still talk about in these strengths. So if you're interested in learning more, or if you're interested in taking your strengths assessment and you haven't yet, make sure you go to tamusa.edu/Jaguar strengths. There you'll find all the schedule for Strengths 101 and 201, how to get your access code, how to make an appointment with Coach. Clarissa and Kaylin are both coaches, but we have many more on campus who are excited and ready to talk to you even during this time. Schedule a WebEx, schedule a Skype, schedule a Zoom, whatever it takes, just a phone call to go over your strengths and learn some more about them during this time. As always, we are the Mays Center, and you can reach us at tamusa.edu/Mays, Mays@tamusa.edu, or Tamusa Mays on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. And as always, we always have, COVID updates, if that's what you're looking for, on the university website, but also on our website for things like volunteering, the different events that we are having. They're not canceled, all of them. They are moving virtual. We have really made a big effort, the entire campus, to do as much as we can to move as many really fun events virtually, like Clarissa and I are matching again. Like we said, it's still Spirit Week. We are still doing these things. So make sure you guys reach out to us, connect with us on social media or via email, our website. We want to hear from you. We want to be here to help you and support you in any way that we can. Eli, thank you so much for being here and for sharing with us and being so willing to, put up with me, really, but also to share about Intellection and to join us today, and to our coaches, as always. I thank you guys as well. I hope you had a good time. I hope this was fun for you. It was fun for me.
It was great. Thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful. Alrighty then, you guys. I will see you all next Thursday. Make sure to check us out on YouTube. Leave a comment below if you guys are interested in learning more about strengths. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Jaguars.
Bye-bye.